Now, after the war, I told you that there was a war between the two of them. They realized that the Quran wasn't written down. People remembered pieces of the Quran. And most, you see, the Caliph said to himself that the Quran would be protected because Allah will ensure that no one in my army will die because they know pieces of the Quran. And if they die, pieces of the Quran will get lost. Well, he was wrong. Most of them got killed off. And so what we have of the Quran, just like Aisha took most of Surah 800 out, because it said in it that if you have a slave working for you, that's a man, and he's to be alone with your wife. We know this says it because it says it in the hadiths. So there won't be a sexual relationship between the two of them. He has to nurse on her 10 times, has to nurse her breasts 10 times. And then after that, he will become her son, and there won't be any sexual relations. So Muhammad's wives were very smart. They got together and got rid of that part, because that clearly won't be the result of a man sucking on the teat of a woman. That isn't what's going to happen. So Aisha said that a sheep ate it. This all comes from Islamic sources, okay? This isn't lies from the Western world. This is all Islamic sources. So the Quran isn't that you have the Quran, is what you have left of the Quran. But there's enough still in there. I suggest reading it yourself. Uthman ibn Affan, 644 to 656, saw that there were many versions of the Quran, so he demanded all copies be taken. He then would decide what was officially in the Quran. Uthman then burned all the copies. Muhammad said that there were 7 versions and gave a list of 5 men only who were designated by him that the Quran would pass correctly. None were Uthman. Uthman was alive and known to Muhammad. The Quran was officially codified in 1924. I actually have 13 Qurans in total. I have doubles of some because there's so many people who don't know about Islam, don't understand it, that I decided, well, you know what, I'll just give copies away. So I told my friend, if you want a copy, well, he sends me this thing saying that the genocide isn't true because there's more Christians in the world than Muslims and than in any other religion, and about how 500 years in Spain it was peaceful under Muslim rule. Not true. I suggest you reading the myth right there, The Myth of the Andalusian Paradise by Dario Fernandez Morera. I am not only Italian, but I am part Spanish, so you could say I'm Hispanic. And another thing about me that you might not know is because I am part Egyptian. My surname is Egyptian. In fact, I'm related to these people who, the knights that came from Egypt, and from the year 800 to 1300, they raped, robbed, pillaged, and murdered the Italians. They kept going into Italy from the year 800 to 1300 until the Italians finally pushed them out. Okay. This is history, but you have to really, really dig to find it. Unfortunately, you have to dig to find it. And but this is the truth. And in a town in Italy, one town, in fact, the Pope made them all saints. And the only way you can find it is, you can't find it under Muslim came into Italy and killed 800. You can't say, you have to type in Pope canonizes over 800 Italians from one town that were decapitated because they didn't want to convert to Islam, so they were all decapitated, and the Pope made them all saints. That's the only way you can find it. You see, if you try to find it the other way, which is not you put in that doesn't make Islam look nice. If you go around it and say and ask about the decapitated Italians, over 800 that were canonized by the Pope, that's the only way you can find it. That's why you really have to know how to work the net to find things. They're there. In Egypt used to be Christian. All these lands used to be Christian. And there's some Christians in India, and they tried to take India too, and tens of millions of Indians were killed in those battles. But these lands were all Christian, converted by missionaries. So they were Christian first, and then the Islamic invasion came in. They say that the Western world colonized and oppressed people. Well, all these lands that are Muslim now used to be Christian, and they were all converted by fire and sword, killed or converted with a sword to the back of your neck. That's how they were converted, and they had to drop their language and learn Arabic because the Quran can only be read in Arabic, according to them. So some of these Muslims, because they didn't like the fact that they were under forced conversion and they wanted to remain Christian, stayed in Europe so they can convert back to Christianity where they would be safer. Now, Syria used to have 20 million Christians, and now they're all gone. Egypt still has some Christians left. In Iraq, there was 1,500,000 Christians. Now it's down to 120,000. And remember the Muslim Brotherhood when Obama cheered the whole Arabic Spring and the Muslim Brotherhood took over, and then they started killing Coptic Christians. Coptic Christians are the oldest link to early Christianity that we have. In fact, Coptic means Egyptian in Greek. They are the true Egyptians. These, if you want to know what the true ancient Egyptians look like, look at a Coptic. Obama invited them to the White House and gave them $1 zillion. Funded them because they thought they were great. And then they went on a killing spree and beheaded all these Coptic Christian men, and they were fishermen. I mean, not only are they Christian, but they are practicing Christianity as Peter did, as some of the apostles did. And they you'll find that you type that in, you'll find that on the net, and you'll find pictures of that. So these people are misinterpreting Islam? No. Muhammad had a penchant for war and beheadings. That's his favorite way of killing people. Okay, I think I've told you enough. Is there any other books on Islam that I have here that I could show you? I think I've showed all the ones that I have here, but I've got more. I've got a lot more. I can't. It's unbelievable. And like I said, the Hadiths, there are 8 more of these books. This is number 1, Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, and Sunnah Abu Dawud are the top 3. 9 books each. They're pretty big books. There's a lot of stuff in each book. And like I said, I will link some to these channels that if you want to check them out. And they're reliable because 3 of them are ex-Muslims and know of whom they speak, and their lives are constantly in danger. And anybody, you see, well, here's the thing. They keep saying Islam is peaceful. Islam is really religion of peace. But because they always greet each other with Allah alaikum, which means, it's a peace greeting, but they will only greet other Muslims with a peace greeting. Doesn't mean it's a religion of peace. And if it's a religion of peace, then if you say or do anything against Islam, or you're speaking negatively, or basically telling the truth, what's in these books, you get killed. Or if you draw, like the Charlie Hebdo massacre, if you draw a picture of Muhammad, blessings and peace be upon him, you get killed, riots start. So if we're misinterpreting Islam, if it's a religion of peace, it would be kind of like Christianity. Like there was a play on Broadway about Jesus being homosexual and sodomizing Peter. Some Christians kind of stood in front of the theater and had a very peaceful protest. On The Daily Show, there was a picture of a woman and her legs spread and her crotch, and right in front of it was the nativity scene, the birth of Jesus. Nobody said anything about that. That would be, if this was against Islam, if that was done to Islam, The Daily Show wouldn't exist anymore. Broadway wouldn't exist anymore. Why is it that there isn't violence when you do something to Christian? Because Jesus said, turn the other cheek, always a peaceful resolution to things. He didn't have any wives. He didn't have sex. He did. Okay. And he was not a warmonger. He didn't behead. Everything was peace. And if you leave Christianity, it's even Richard Dawkins. Even Richard Dawkins has admitted that in Christianity, you have a choice to remain, if you're raised in the Church of England, you have a choice when you become to not be Christian. You can walk away from it. But in Islam, you're an apostate. It's the death sentence. And it says that right in their books. It's the death sentence. Or if you are a hypocrite, you're not practicing it the way they believe you should be practicing it, you're killed. That's why one sect kills the other sect constantly. So if there's any misinterpretation going on, this is why we have the misinterpretation. Since the inception of Islam, this has been going on. So it's Islam itself that's giving the Western world the wrong interpretation of Islam. It's not Christianity's delusion. And unfortunately, the lies of the Crusades and Muslim Spain have been perpetrated for too long. And it's not the truth. You see, Christians have killed and done bad things. Christians have been abusive or whatever. Well, if you read Jesus's teachings and if you imitate Jesus, what they're doing is the opposite of what Jesus has taught. In Islam, it's exactly what Muhammad taught and what Muhammad did. They're following Muhammad, so you can't really blame them. And of course, if they're in fear of their lives, if they do otherwise, then you can see why they do what they do, because they're in fear for their own lives, right? But many Muslims have defected, and their lives are in danger. So when you hear about things like Pamela Geller and Bridget Gabriel, these people who talk and tell you the truth about their experience with Islam, and their lives are constantly being threatened. If Islam is a religion of peace, then it would be like Jesus, turn the other cheek, a peaceful solution to everything. The only time he got angry at the hypocrites, the Pharisees, but he didn't commit violence against them. And of course, the temple, when he turned the tables over in the temple. Do you want to know why the story of that is? It wasn't that they were selling things at the temple. That wasn't it. Oh, they have a gift shop at the temple. That wasn't it. It was because the poor people, the lepers, the underclass, to get your sins forgiven, you had to buy an unblemished animal. That's what they were selling, were animals, okay, to be sacrificed. And then the Pharisees would take the sacrifice, take the best cut of the animal, and keep that for themselves to eat. And then they would burn all the fat and the skin and the bones. They would burn and send them to God. So there were a bunch of hypocrites, and they made a ton of money. That's why, and they were living, Caiaphas, they said they found like 5 palaces of his, and they all had many baths. There was a bathroom off every room and tiled mosaic floors. They were making tons of money off these poor people, which infuriated Jesus. Well, get your sins forgiven. That's why Jesus said, to his father, you do not delight in the blood of animals. I will go down, I'll be the last sacrifice. I will end the sacrifice stuff and the bloodletting. Then they pour the blood on the horns of the altar and they spray it all over the Holy of Holies, which is where the Ark of the Covenant is. It's sick, it's disgusting, it's ridiculous. Or he was some kind of vegan. He was a vegetarian, by the way. Historically, we know that's accurate, that he was a vegetarian. And maybe he came to say, hey, look, I'm God. I'm reconciling man to God, and I'm going to die, and there will be no more sacrifices. It is done now. The poor people, like the lepers, the underclass, the sick, they were not allowed to buy an animal to be sacrificed so their sins could be washed away. They were not allowed to, it's the money lenders. It was an exchange from Roman currency, should they even have a penny, Roman currency into temple currency. You had to exchange that money. That's why the money lenders, the money changers in the temple, that's what it was. You had to change it to temple currency. And the Pharisees, the people of the upper class Jews, wouldn't allow the lower class poor Jews to exchange that money into temple currency so they can buy an animal to have sacrificed so their sins could be washed away. So Jesus got pissed and he turned the tables over in the temple, and by right, he told them off. You hypocrite, how dare you do this? Look at what you're doing. That was wrong. So he was the last sacrifice. No more. Nobody needs to change their money. No animal needs to die. The animal is sacrificed when you sin. Sacrificing an animal is, the animal pays the price. So Jesus paid the price, not you. So it's ridiculous. So this whole idea, he says, there's more Christians in the world than any other religion. Well, not true. Here's a fallacy. In America, they did a survey, and about 43% of the people belong to a religious institution of any kind. We're talking any religious institution, any religion. Only 43% of the people. And there's a smaller segment of that are actually Christian. So that means Christianity is really dying out in the West. So that's wrong. And there are many people who are, just because they live in the West, they're designated as Christian. Maybe their parents were Christian, or they're descendant of Christians, but they practice Wiccan or paganism, or they've converted to another religion, but they just assume that there's this great segment of the population that's Christian. Not true. China, communist. Russia has been communist for a long time, which removes religion altogether and persecutes anybody who, in China, even persecutes the Muslims in China. So the communism gets rid of religion altogether. And when you think of the big countries in the world, Africa, great majority of Africa is Muslim, or they practice voodoo or other ancient religion that has been passed down in Africa. That's not Christianity. So we're talking Africa, Arabia, all these countries that the whole Caliphate was spread over, that were Christian, that are now all Muslim. In India, it's Jainism, Sikhism, Buddhism, Hinduism. Hare Krishnas are there too. Jews, the only place in the world the Jews have not been persecuted. And then Pakistan was a partition of India that broke off. That is Muslim now. And according to Facebook, anybody in Pakistan that posts anything against Islam on Facebook, Jeff Zuckerberg promised the government of Pakistan to tell them who they are so they can be killed. And so people are being killed. And thanks to Jeff Zuckerberg, who got up there the other day and claims that they look at everything that's posted to protect dangerous speech because they want to prevent violence. But if you give the names over to the Pakistani government of people posted something against Islam, and then they're killed, then no. Who is he protecting? Nobody. It's but just like you couldn't, in Germany, you couldn't post during the election anything negative against Merkel or what Merkel is doing to the country. He agreed, he took the money, and all those posts were taken down. If you notice, the people who own all these companies, all the people with money, are all liberal. Jeff Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, George Soros, Google, Amazon, they're all liberal. They're all left-leaning. So everything you buy, everything you see, everything you read, and you say you're for the poor people, the liberals, they keep saying they're for the poor people. No, you're not. No, you're not. The biggest wigs of the world are Democrat, want socialism. They want globalism. I've just named them all for you, okay? And what they're doing. I know what I'm talking about. And in fact, you could say my great-grandfather was an apostate, right? Was an apostate. So I am connected to this. If I speak, I say this, it is not somebody from the outside. It is my own blood and DNA, my ancestry that did this. And my great-grandfather would be considered an apostate. And in Islam, you are a Muslim if your father's a Muslim. So it comes down to the father's side. My surname is Egyptian. Nonetheless, my great-grandfather wanted to convert back to Christianity. And these people came from Egypt into Europe. They were black-skinned. And they brought a grain with them that was grown in Egypt, buckwheat. My surname was considered a defamatory, derogatory word to use. It was the word that you called black-skinned people before the blank word. You know that blank word that no white person can ever say? My last name was the original word, was the word before that. And in fact, there are many people in Haiti with either my surname as their first or last because they're proud of it, because it means they're descended from Egyptians. So that's an interesting thing to note. Most people with my surname actually are black. And in this country, the highest concentration of people with my surname are in Cajun country. And it's believed that people from France, they came over and they married African slaves or former African slaves. And they're mixed. Well, the reason why they did that was because they were already mixed. See, why would you come over as a white person? Because they were French, took part of this country. Why would you, being French, come over here and then marry a black person as somebody who's a former slave? Why would you do that? It's because you're already mixed. You're already mixed. And so that is my history. And to say this in front of the camera on YouTube actually puts my life in danger. Puts my life in danger, the fact that I support Trump where I live also puts my life in danger. And the interesting thing to note, and I said in my last video, that the Muslims who have come to this country, have lived here for years, came here escaping all that violence and just want to practice it the way they want to practice it and not be killed. But interesting thing, my friends from Egypt who more recently came over from Egypt, hate Trump because he wanted to put a ban on 5 countries that were Muslim majority, but they're rocked by terrorism, and there's no way to know the identity of these people, to know if they're affiliated with a terrorist group. So he wanted to just put a temporary ban. My friends were totally against that and hated Trump for it. But I said, but if they come over and they're terrorists, they can come over and kill the Muslims in this country. Their lives are in danger because they may be a different sect and they might kill them because they're killing each other over there. In those countries, they're blowing each other up. He still hated Trump because of that. Doesn't make sense to me. Don't you want to protect the Muslims in this country? Islam must spread. And Islam, they're good people, they're funny guys, they're generous, but still, Islam must spread around the world. And if it means fighting and warring, then it means fighting and warring. But Islam, that is the end times, that is the end of days. And to this day, Muslims are blowing up other Muslims. Muslims are being attacked. The Christchurch attack was done by an environmentalist, one of these climate change crazy people who wants to create discord in America, because by killing these people with guns, America will demand that the guns be taken away. He was a nut job, but he was an environmentalist. He wasn't, they say he's a white supremacist. No, he is, well, actually, people on the left are white supremacists because it is the party of the KKK. And we know Robert Byrd died in 2011, and he was the grand exalted cyclops of the West Virginia KKK, and the Democrats, Obama, put his statue up in the Capitol Rotunda. So this white supremacy is really ingrained in the Democrat Party. And that Charlottesville thing, it was organized by an Obama donor. Obama Hillary supporter is the one who organized that whole thing. They're behind all this. They're still supremacists. That's why this guy who's a white supremacist, they call him, you think Republican? The people who abolished slavery, who did the massacre in the Christchurch Temple, he's an environment, he's a climate change nutcase. That's who did it. The guy who shot up Steve Scalise, who wanted to kill all the Republicans there, he was a Bernie supporter. Let's not forget this, what side the violence comes from. And there are many Muslims who are peaceful, and there's nearly 2 billion Muslims in the world. Probably, I would say, more Muslims, practicing Muslims, than there are Christians. And Christians are being annihilated. So this is in response to my friend who apparently, as educated as they are, doesn't know anything because they listen to the MSM. Do not listen to the MSM. Do not listen to them. I told you that they have been poisoned by Bill Clinton allowing one person can own every media source out there. But we have 6. And all these 6 people have the same agenda. They have the same political leaning. That's the reason why the law was there, so that wouldn't happen. So you'd have many different opinions. And that's what no matter how educated these people are, they're still listening to Salon and Slate and the MSNBC and CNN, and I could go on and on and on and on, you know. And Fox, Murdoch's sons took over Fox. One is more moderate, but he is a liberal. The other one is a full raging social justice warrior. So Fox is changing too. So you really have to dig for the truth, but they're not telling you the truth because they are on this one side, and it's owned by these less than 1%ers, the elite of the elite. So if you think you're educated and intelligent, you're not, because you're not educating yourself on the truth. You have to really work hard. And you see, I have books. I have actual books. I don't just pick up the computer and find stuff on a website, which could be wrong. I have actual books, which people don't have anymore. So when you listen to me, my God, you say, this lady knows a lot about a lot of things. Yes. And I have the books. Okay. Good night, everyone. I'm sorry this lasted this long. This was supposed to be short. Good night. Sorry I'm not glamorous tonight, but I'm, wow. I had to get all these books. I had to go all over the house and find them. I've got a lot. Anyway, good night, everyone. Please don't kill me.